So before I got into the meat of this video, I wanted to talk about a couple of things. Number one, we've got something like a quasi merch line. The YouTube channel is definitely not big enough to have a merch line, but once upon a time, when this YouTube channel was simply used as a sort of shotgun meme format for my ministerial career, I'm not joking about that. I actually have a whole host of saved videos of just heavily edited like videos of me back when I had short hair, by the way, when I did Christian ministry, um, just doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Anyways, I had a t-shirt line. And funny enough, that t-shirt line still sells quite heavily. I won't say what it is because then, yeah, people will probably stop buying it, realizing that the person they're purchasing all this super reformed Protestant Christian merchandise from is not Protestant or Christian at all. But anyways, I have, well, my wife and I have started creating clothing that mostly I just wanted to wear out in public. I wanted some really comfortable t-shirts and sweaters and hoodies. And I was trying to mimic. Um, do you remember the store called Lifeway? I remember a store called Lifeway. It was like this really cringy Christian store, which I think paid their workers like minimum wage, at least from the guys I knew that worked there. And they had like a bunch of Bibles, like your stereotypical like Christian material. Think of like Barnes and Nobles. But that little small section for Christianity and Christian living is just blown up. And so you have anything there from like commentaries from John Calvin to Joe Olstein's books about how to live a really, really rich life. Crazy stuff, right? Anything made those shelves. Um, they had like a whole t-shirt section. And I remember in that t-shirt section, they had like these really cringy t-shirts that would say like in really bold and plain letters, like Jesus is Lord or God is love. And we were really trying to capture that cringe. And so I made some hoodies, and literally it'll say things like Ahura Mazda is the wise Lord. um, Obviously, it's meant to be like I'm trolling, but at the same time, this hoodie is banging. Like it is just so comfortable. Anyways, so long story short, right? To borrow a phrase from a really good friend, um, we made some clothing, and you probably saw that I posted some of that clothing up on the little community post. If you're interested in stuff like that, or if it's something that you would want to purchase, we're going to try to keep this minimal and very interpersonal. So stuff that we'll make out of our own home rather than going to a third party purveyor, right? We're going to make them, literally buy the shirts and print them ourselves and do all the labor. So if it's something you're interested in, please let me know. This is totally relevant, not a shameless plug, totally relevant to the video I'm about to make here. Anyways, I live in a really small town in Texas. I actually moved really, really far away in an area that is just so obscure. There's like nothing there, right? Which pretty much describes about 80% of Texas that's not Austin, Houston, or Dallas. Um, Anyways, there are these fancy stores called HEBs, which I like to call the Heb, right? And if you live in Texas, you know that HEB is like the creme de creme. It's the best, right? Absolute best OG grocery stores ever. If you live outside of Texas, you've probably just seen a bunch of Forbes magazines talking about how HEB is like the absolute best place in the world to work and has pretty good wages, which I guess if you're in Texas, it's all bad. So HEB is probably the best. No, no kidding, right? If you're starting low, you can only go up high. So, anyways, I was going into my local HEB, and you probably have noticed I'm a very particular looking kind of guy, right? So even in more populated and more dense areas in Texas, I stand out. I get a lot of stares. I'm covered in tattoos. I'm kind of buff, and like I have really long hair, so I get the stereotypical like, is that a cult leader look? Um, I'm definitely going to make a video about how there was a whole rumor in Kentucky that I was a cult leader at one point. That rumor's still going. I'm going to make a video about that. Anyways, I went into my local HEB, right? Shameless plug for HEB. Uh, Give me some like money for representing. That would be great. An endorsement check. Um, and the cashier saw my hoodie. And I guess this cashier had made some pretty careful observations of me there as I'd shopped there several times, right? It's my local. It's like 5 minutes from my house. And I'm wearing this hoodie, right? And he sees my hoodie, he reads my hoodie, and then, of course, asks me, who the heck's Ahura Mazda, right? Now, by some twist of fate, the troll, like me essentially turning a hoodie into like a troll meme type thing, actually worked evangelistically, right? I wasn't intending to proselytize. And of course, Zoroastrianism doesn't require that you do, right? But of course, I'm going to tell him what it is. And so I'm not trying to go back into my old school, apologetic, ministerial vibe, right? And so I just tell him really blanketedly as I'm checking out, scanning my card or whatever I'm doing, I'm like, he's just the highest god in the Zoroastrian faith, right? Very general, but also very true. He's asking. Now, of course, he responds to me, dude, I've seen you in here a bunch, right? And I know that you're covered in Bible verse tattoos, which is true to some extent. I have like 2. A lot of the other tattoos I have on me are actually song lyrics. It's hilarious. Teenagers and tattoos. Anyways, he's like, you're covered in Bible verse tattoos, and I even noticed you had a Neon Genesis Evangelion tattoo on the back of your arm. This man is of the finer taste, clearly. Which he's not wrong, I do. So very observant, and he asked me, how do you square all that? He had so many questions. He's like, I have so many questions I want to ask you. And I just told him, I was like, look, because obviously the line is, there's more people getting in line, right? There's another guy coming down that aisle, and I just don't want to be in the way. And I'm not here to proselytize, right? So I was like, if you're interested in that kind of thing, right? I was like trying to explain to him, like, this is more for like YouTube. I'm just trolling, trying to explain all that. Very hard to explain in a HEB line, right? But he says he has all these questions, and I just simply say, like, okay, well, kind of shoot, like what question? And he just essentially asked me, like, how do I square all this? Like, I've got these Bible verse tattoos, and then of course I'm repping Zoroastrian gear, and I just simply said, look, I was a Christian minister at one point in my life, and then I converted to Zoroastrianism later in life, right? And of course that perked the interest, as it oftentimes does. And then he followed that by asking if I could, in a nutshell, I guess this is the Reddit explain like I'm 5, can you tell me what Zoroastrian is? And so what I wanted to do is I gave this long-winded story to give you this really, really small snippet at what looks to be the 750 timestamp of a how do I explain Zoroastrianism in a nutshell for those who are trying to explain Zoroastrianism in a nutshell. And so what I tried to do is make it contextual. This is the West, heavily Christianized, and I explained it essentially as such. I said that, imagine Christianity. Christianity is what we call monistic, right? It starts with one God creating all things, and so everything in this bubble is really a product of that God. And then, of course, from that, a worldview is spawned based on the consequences or the fallout of that perspective. And I said, within Zoroastrianism, it's quite different, right? We start with 2 primordial principles, good and evil, Ahura Mazda or Angra Mainyu, right? And these 2 principles have always been engaged with each other, and they're antagonistic. They're at odds with each other. And all of creation really is a representation of this fundamental and foundational conflict between good and evil. And ultimately, us as humans, our place in that conflict is to make the choice as to which side we will support. Either that of Ahura Mazda, the great god of Zoroastrianism, which seeks to fulfill the good, to see the perfection of all of creation, or to choose the path of evil, the path of Angra Mainyu. So for those who are looking for an explanation in a nutshell, right, to explain like I'm 5, I've done a couple of these on Reddit. Probably a lot more articulate, but in the spur of the moment where you have to explain it to that random cashier at HEB, and of course if you are that cashier at HEB and you happen to see this, I hope I was helpful in some way, even though I was very quick and to the punch and definitely trying to get out of HEB with my small container of HEB ice cream, which was pretty good. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for more.